It was supposed to be just another day on the corner of 3rd and Lexington, a boiling hot afternoon. In New York City, the air thick with the smell of car exhaust, pretzels, and fried rice. Lena Alvarez, 52, stood behind her battered food cart, just like she had for the past 16 years. Her apron was stained with oil, her hair tucked into a net, and her eyes tired. But kind scanned the crowd for her next customer. She had no idea that today, her entire life would flip upside down, because a man in an Italian suit was about to humiliate her in front of everyone. He stepped out of a matte black Mercedes Maybach, polished shoes, Rolex glimmering, a presence that silenced the sidewalk. "UGH, what is that smell?" he sneered. The line of customers turned toward him. Lena offered her usual gentle smile. "Egg and rice, sir. Would you like a plate?" He raised an eyebrow. "Poor people's food? Absolutely not." And with that, he leaned over, spat on her cart, and walked away. The gasps around her were immediate. A teenager filming with his phone muttered, "Did he really just?" But Lena just wiped it off, quietly, as if she'd been insulted before. And she had. But what she didn't know, that moment had just been uploaded, and the entire city was about to take a side. Cut to 3 days earlier. Same man, different world. Inside a skyscraper high above Park Avenue, billionaire Victor Radcliffe, tech mogul, was pacing across a marble floor. His startup had just gone public. The media was calling him the next Elon. But inside those golden walls, something wasn't right. His assistant whispered, "Sir, the Korean investors pulled out. They saw the numbers. They're not convinced." Victor slammed his fist into the wall. "Fix it. Get them back. I don't care what it takes." But his tech empire was cracking, and Victor didn't know it yet. But the key to saving it was selling rice and eggs. Dr. Ellis Tran, sociologist and urban food culture expert, Columbia University, explains, when elites mock working class food, they're not just mocking taste, they're mocking struggle. But ironically, that struggle, it's what most billionaires spend millions trying to manufacture as authenticity. Victor Radcliffe was about to learn that the hard way, because Lena's cart wasn't just a food stand. It was a cultural landmark with a secret past, and the video of him spitting on it was about to hit 14 million views. A comment read, "Rich boy spits on food that raised half of New York. I hope he chokes on truffle foam." Another, "That lady served my dad when he was homeless. Now he owns 3 gyms. Respect her." But Victor didn't know any of this until a knock on his penthouse door shattered his calm. "Sir, you need to see this." He grabbed the iPad, pressed play, and watched himself sneering, spitting, walking away. "Who recorded this?" "Everyone, sir. It's gone viral." Victor froze, then laughed. "They'll forget it in 24 hours. But what he didn't know is that this time, they wouldn't. And someone was coming for him. And she was bringing a frying pan. The morning after the video exploded, Lena Alvarez stood at her cart, surrounded by silence. No sizzling, no customer chatter, no orders being called out. Her card was still there, same dented side panel, same laminated menu with $3.50 egg and rice combo scribbled in faded marker. But now, the sidewalk was empty. She stared down at her worn-out sneakers, then looked up as a delivery boy dropped off a crate of eggs. "You're trending," he said with a nervous chuckle. "Like, everywhere." She didn't reply. Instead, she turned on the burner, cracked an egg, and watched it bubble. 6 blocks away. Victor Radcliffe was walking into a boardroom filled with suits and silence. He was used to commanding rooms with power. But today, the air had shifted. "Victor," said Marcus Bell, his chief brand strategist, "we have a problem." He tossed a thick folder onto the table. On the cover, a screenshot of Lina's cart, with Victor mid-spit, paused in Ultra HD. This is the front page of Reddit, TikTok, Twitter, every news blog from here to Singapore. Victor rolled his eyes. "I said I'm not apologizing. You may not have a choice," Marcus said flatly, "because someone just offered Lina $100,000 to tell her story on national TV." Victor's smirk faded. Now it wasn't just a meme. It was a threat. 3 years ago, Lina Alvarez wasn't a vendor. She was an executive sous chef at a midtown 5-star hotel. Trained in Paris, Michelin star background. She'd served royalty, billionaires, even Victor's CFO once. But then came the fire. Her husband's cancer diagnosis. The insurance scam that wiped out their savings. And just like that, the apron that once held a name tag reading Executive Chef Lina was replaced with one that read vendor number 208 from the Department of Street Operations. But she never complained. She just cooked. Because that cart, it was the last place her husband kissed her forehead before chemo. It was the first place her son sold his poetry books. And it was the only place in New York where you could get a perfect egg over jasmine rice with chili crisp for under $5. Dr. Hugo Bennett, author of The Dignity of Daily Meals, explains, "When we reduce food to status, we forget its sacred role in community. A billionaire's tasting menu might impress, but a street cart meal that nourishes, that sustains." Meanwhile, Victor's PR team launched a campaign in panic. Apology tweet. Drafted. Not posted. Donation offer. Rejected. Surprise visit to Lina's cart. Too risky. Private meeting offer. Ignored. Lina wasn't biting. But Victor still wasn't scared. Until he saw the hashtag Lina deserves better movement trending worldwide. Celebrities reposted it. Gordon Ramsay liked a post. Even the mayor's office issued a statement. Victor gritted his teeth. "This is ridiculous. It's rice and eggs." But his coup said coldly, "No, Victor, this is about you." Back on the corner of 3rd and Lexington, something was shifting. People were returning, one by one, then to buy two, holding handwritten signs. "Lina's food saved me more flavor than a 5-star chef, eggs greater than eco." And someone else was watching, too, from a tinted car window across the street. A mysterious figure holding a clipboard whispered into an earpiece, "She's the one." Proceed with phase 2. But who were they? And why were they so interested in a street vendor? You'll find out soon. But first, Victor was about to make a desperate move, one that would take him back to that cart and change everything. Victor Radcliffe hated doing anything that made him look weak. But by day 4, his team had convinced him the only way out of the scandal was to face Lina in person. So there he stood, surrounded by a wall of cameras, wearing a crisp navy suit and a practiced look of humility. The cart was open. The street was packed. And Lina? She stood calmly behind her sizzling pan, ladling soy glaze onto a bed of jasmine rice like nothing had changed. Victor cleared his throat. "I came to say I'm sorry." The crowd fell silent. Lina looked up and said nothing. Reporters leaned in. Microphones angled. Victor continued. "My comment was insensitive. I realize now food isn't about wealth. It's about community. And I disrespected yours." He turned toward the cameras and added, I'd like to personally fund a food justice initiative starting with a donation to Lina's community kitchen fund. Gasps, applause. But Lina, she didn't clap. She didn't smile. She simply asked, would you like a plate? Victor blinked. Sure. She scooped egg and rice into a paper bowl, handed it over. He took one bite. Paused. It was incredible, savory, comforting, a hint of heat, a layer of memory. He looked up, stunned, and Lina finally said, that's what you spat on. The silence roared louder than any speech. Social media exploded. He really showed up just to save face. That look on his face when he tasted it, though, priceless. She cooked that egg with ancestral rage and culinary precision. But then came the twist. A leaked recording hit the internet. Victor, the night before, ranting to his legal team, I'll just pretend to care. Give her a check. The internet loves that crap. We'll be back to IPOs by Monday. Double quotes. Boom. The apology exposed as a stunt. The backlash. Nuclear #cancel Radcliffe trended for 36 hours straight. The donation offer was rejected. The board called an emergency meeting. And Lina, she kept cooking. Because she wasn't chasing fame. But someone else was watching her rise. And making plans of their own. Across town, in a converted industrial loft, a woman named Camila Rivera watched Lina's footage on 3 screens at once. A former Wall Street analyst turned social entrepreneur, Camila had one obsession: rebuilding the economy from the ground up, starting with street vendors. She turned to her assistant, set up a meeting with Lina. Quietly. Why her? Camila leaned forward. Because she just did what 10 TED Talks and $1 billion PR firm couldn't. She made the world listen. Victor, meanwhile, was spiraling. Investors were ghosting him, TV networks pulled interviews. His own company launched an internal review. But his greatest fear wasn't losing money. It was what he saw in that single frame: himself, sneering. And the look on Lina's face. He couldn't stop seeing it. Because deep down, it reminded him of someone. His mother. 30 years ago, Victor grew up in a trailer outside Tulsa. His mom worked a double shift as a line cook. Came home reeking of grease and dish soap. She used to say, egg and rice cures everything. He used to believe her. Until he ran from that world. Buried it. Now, it was staring him in the face. And suddenly, one plate wasn't enough. He had to go back. But not as Victor Radcliffe, CEO. He had to go back as the boy who once loved that meal. And Lina, she wasn't going to make it easy. Because someone else had just arrived at her cart. Someone who knew Victor's secrets. And wanted revenge. You won't believe who. The man stepped out of a yellow cab. Slow and deliberate. Leather boots, a denim jacket sun-bleached by time. His face was lined, not just with age but with memory. He walked straight past the waiting customers, up to Lina's cart. To plates, he said. To go. Lina didn't flinch. She scooped, salted, and sealed the orders. Only when she looked up to hand him the bag did she pause. You're not from around here. No, he said, with a southern drawl. But he is. He pointed across the street. Victor was standing alone, staring at the cart, but not crossing. Lina narrowed her eyes. You know him. The man nodded. I raised him. His name was Earl Tuckman, Victor's mother's ex-boyfriend. The man who taught young Victor how to fry eggs in a dented skillet over a propane stove. The man who disappeared the day Victor turned 13. I never knew what became of him, Earl said quietly, until I saw that video. That That ain't the kid I knew. Lena handed him the bag. You should tell him that. Earl shook his head. He don't want to hear from me. Not now. Not after what I did. Victor still hadn't crossed the street. He just stood there, holding a phone that kept lighting up with missed calls. His board. His lawyer. His mother. He turned it off, and for the first time in days, he let himself remember. Back then, dinner was whatever they could scrounge. Eggs, canned rice, a little salt if they were lucky. But it wasn't about hunger. It was about hope. Eat up, Earl used to say. Tomorrow's got fight in it. Back at the cart, Lena was closing up early. Camila Rivera had just arrived, and she wasn't here for rice. She was here with a folder. Inside, a proposal that could change everything. A culinary incubator, owned by street vendors, funded by ethical investors. With Lena as the founding face. Lena blinked. Why me? Camila smiled. Because you turned a slap into a movement. That's leadership. But Lena hesitated. I'm not trying to be famous. I'm just trying to feed people. Camila leaned in. Then feed more. I'll handle the noise. You focus on flavor. Lena looked down at her cart, its scratches, its steam, its soul, and nodded. Meanwhile, Earl crossed the street. Victor didn't see him until he was just a few feet away. For a second, Victor didn't recognize him, then shock, pain, something close to shame. You came, Victor whispered. Wasn't sure if I should. Victor swallowed hard. What do you want? Earl held up the bag. Lunch. Same thing you used to beg me for. Victor chuckled bitterly. You disappeared. You buried me first, Earl replied. Victor's smile faded. I didn't want to remember. Well, seems like the whole world just reminded you. That night, Lena sat at home, staring at the TV. Her face was on the news. Again. But this time, it wasn't about what Victor did. It was about what she had done next. Accepted Camila's offer. Signed the papers. Lena Alvarez was about to go from vendor to visionary. But as the city celebrated her, Victor sat in silence in a dark room. No cameras. No boardroom. No followers, just him. And a note left at his door. Come back tomorrow. No cameras. Just hunger. -LA. He read it twice. And for the first time, he felt it. Not shame. Not fear. Just hunger, real hunger. But he had no idea who else would be waiting at that cart tomorrow morning. Someone who didn't want redemption. Someone who wanted it all to burn. And they had a plan. The next morning, just after sunrise, Victor Radcliffe walked down 3rd and Lexington, alone. No security. No designer suit. No cameras trailing him for clicks. Just a plain hoodie, jeans, and a nervous heartbeat. Lina's cart was already open. The scent of garlic, sesame, and warm rice curled through the cold morning air. Victor stopped a few feet away. I came hungry. Lena glanced up. No smile. No judgment. Just a nod. One plate. He nodded back. Yes, please. She cracked an egg. Let it sizzle in the oil. Tossed rice with scallions and soy in rhythmic, fluid motions. Victor watched, mesmerized. This used to be my favorite meal, he said quietly. I know, Lena replied. Earl told me. Victor's face tightened. He hadn't expected that. But he said nothing more. She handed him the plate. No cameras. Just hunger. Somewhere uptown, inside a boardroom with marble floors and abstract art. Victor's absence was causing chaos. The Radcliffe Group's stock had dipped 12%. A leaked email suggested a hostile takeover bid, and one name kept coming up as the potential buyer: Camila Rivera. Her team had just made a formal offer to acquire Radcliffe's failing food tech startup division. At first, the board had laughed. Now, they were reading the offer line by line. Victor sat on the curb, eating silently. Lena stood beside him. "Why'd you leave all that behind?" she asked. He sighed. "Because I built it for the wrong reasons." She waited. "My mom used to say food is a love letter. I made it into a status game. Chased Michelin stars and margins. Forgot what it was like to actually feed someone." Lena nodded slowly. "Then maybe this is your rewrite." He looked down at the plate. There wasn't a grain of rice left. At that moment, across the street, someone else was watching. A man in an all-black coat, holding a folder labeled Operation Humble All, Phase 3. Inside were photos, documents, bank transfers, and a plan to expose both Victor and Camila, to destroy the movement from the inside. His name? Jonas Clem, former business partner, former best friend. Now, something else entirely. Jonas had been part of Victor's original startup team, the brain behind the code, the architect of the first IPO. But when Victor clawed his way to the top, he left Jonas behind, cut his shares, erased his name. Jonas vanished from the tech scene. Until now, he watched Lena hand Victor a second plate, this time on the house. Then he turned away, pulled out his phone, and made the call. "It's time. Leak everything, and make sure her name is in it too." Back at the cart, Earl returned. 3 plates this time. 1 for him, 1 for Lena, 1 for Victor. The 3 of them sat on the curb, eating in silence. A strange little family born from mistakes, survival, and egg over rice. Victor looked at Lena. "You don't have to forgive me," Lena replied. "I'm not feeding you for forgiveness. I'm feeding you for tomorrow." But tomorrow was already unraveling, because just as Victor took his last bite, his phone buzzed. Dozens of notifications, headlines. Ex-partner leaks internal docs tying Lena's new venture to fraud, Radcliffe's redemption story faked. The $20 million betrayal. Victor stared at the screen and whispered, "He's coming for all of us." The camera zooms in on his face, no longer smug, no longer broken, just ready. But what he didn't know was that Jonas wasn't just coming for his company. He was coming for Lena's soul, and she had no idea what storm was about to hit her. The headlines hit harder than a subway train at rush hour. Every screen in Times Square blazed with the same shocking claim: fraud, food, and Facadas, the street cart queen, and the fallen CEO. Lena Alvarez's name was everywhere, tied to shell companies she'd never heard of, financial statements she never signed, and a paper trail leading back to Camila Rivera. In the span of 6 hours, Lena went from local hero to the center of a corporate scandal. Customers stopped coming, vendors looked away, and at 3:43 p.m., the Department of Public Health issued a suspension on her cart pending investigation. Lena stood frozen as an officer taped a red notice across her front panel. Victor arrived seconds too late. He ripped the notice off. "Who did this?" The officer replied calmly. "Talk to your people, Radcliffe. You've got enemies in high places." Camila wasn't hiding. In fact, she was already on a live stream, doing damage control. "This is a smear campaign," she said, voice steady. "Lena Alvarez is a culinary visionary. Someone clearly wants to destroy what we're building." But the comments scrolled fast and brutal. "Funny how the visionary suddenly owns part of a shell corp. Another fake redemption story. We're done falling for this. Guess that second plate came with a price tag. Victor pulled Lena aside. I'll fix this. She didn't speak. I swear to you, whatever this is, whoever's behind it, it's not over. She turned to him, eyes burning. You think I care about headlines? I care about my cart, about the people I feed. And now I can't even do that. Victor looked down, ashamed. I should have never come near your life. Lena's voice softened. No, you just forgot what it meant to live hungry. Across the city, Jonas Clem watched the chaos unfold with clinical satisfaction in front of him. 3 monitors showed Lena's trending down, all Victor's falling stock price. Camilla's panicked live stream picked up his glass of bourbon, leaned back in his chair, and smiled. Then he opened a hidden folder on his screen, labeled Project Redemption, Final Phase. Inside, contracts, emails, and one grainy photo of Victor's mother, arm in arm with someone Jonas knew Lena would recognize. It was her late husband. And that wasn't a coincidence. Back in Queens, Lena sat in her darkened apartment, surrounded by unopened letters and cold takeout. A knock at the door. Victor, he held out a folder. Not digital. Paper. Handwritten notes. What's this? My backup. From before everything got digital. It proves you didn't touch those companies. Lena flipped through the pages. Her eyes widened. These are receipts, dates, bank trails, everything Jonas erased, Victor said. But I never throw away paper. She looked up. Why are you doing this? Victor didn't blink. Because you were the first person in 10 years to look me in the eye and not see a brand. Meanwhile, Camila was doing her own digging. Her assistant burst into the office. We found something. Jonas isn't just coming after you, he's building his own street food conglomerate. Quietly, he's been buying carts, rebranding, planning a hostile cultural takeover. Camilla's jaw dropped. And using our story to burn the ground first. Exactly. She stood up. Then we hit back. The next morning, Lena returned to her cart not to cook, but to fight. She posted a sign, temporary closure, not defeat, underneath. She taped Victor's backup folder for the world to read page by page. By noon, a crowd had gathered. By evening, the hashtag Justice for Lena was trending worldwide. But as she stood there, watching the city lean back toward her, Victor got a call. Unknown number, he answered. A voice said, she may have cleared her name, but if she finds out what you're still hiding, she'll never forgive you. Click. Victor froze, because buried deep in that folder was one truth even he had tried to forget, a truth that connected Lena's past to his betrayal, and she was about to uncover it. The photo fell out of the folder as Lena packed it into her bag. A grainy black and white image, creases like scars, corners curled with age. She almost missed it, but something about the man in the center caught her eye. Not Victor, not Jonas, someone else. His eyes, his posture, his hand, round her late husband's shoulder. She froze, pulled the image closer, and saw it. The date scribbled on the back. Fall, 1997. Tulsa. Lena whispered to herself. That's not possible. Because in 1997, her husband was still single, still working nights at a factory in Oklahoma. And the man beside him, Victor's mother's boyfriend, Earl Victor, was already pacing outside her apartment, phone glued to his ear. We have to get ahead of this, sir, said his lawyer. If she sees that photo and connects the dots, she already has. Victor cut in. I need Earl. Now, he disappeared again. Victor cursed under his breath. Because if Lena connected her husband's past to Victor's upbringing, she would realize the truth. That the man she married was once the closest thing to a father Victor ever had. And that meant Victor hadn't just spat on a food cart. He'd spat on family. Lena's hands trembled as she laid out the pieces. Photo, receipts, handwritten notes. A train ticket stub from Tulsa to New York dated 1998. She remembered her husband telling her he had a roommate during his early years. He helped me survive, he'd said. Taught me to cook. Taught me to hustle. Disappeared before I could say thank you. Now, it all made sense. Earl had raised two boys. One became a street vendor's husband. The other became a billionaire who forgot his roots. And when Earl vanished, he left both of them fractured. Dr. Elistran reappears in a news segment. This isn't just a story about food or pride. It's about generational scars, how poverty forces people to bury parts of themselves just to survive. And how redemption isn't about going back. It's about going through. Jonas wasn't done. He leaked another document. This one, fake but convincing. It alleged that Lena had once paid for her food permit with stolen money from a vendor union. Suddenly, the crowd outside her cart split. Protests, accusations, debates. Someone threw an egg at her window. Lena ducked. Heart racing, Victor burst through the crowd. Get inside. They slammed the door shut. For a moment, they stood in darkness, just the sound of their breathing. The chaos outside muffled. Victor held up the photo. I was going to tell you. When? Lena whispered. I didn't know until a year ago. I didn't know your husband was the same man who raised me. I buried that whole part of my life. Lena stared at him. I served you food cooked with the same hands that raised you. And you spit on it. He nodded. I know. Outside, Camille arrived with a mic and a megaphone. She stood on the cart's roof and addressed the crowd. This is not just about Lena. This is about every person whose hands fed this city. While the rich looked down on them, double quotes cheers, Victor peeked through the blinds. She's turning this into a revolution. Lena didn't respond. She opened the drawer where she kept her old journal. Inside, a letter her husband had written before he died. It read, if you ever meet a boy named Victor, be kind. He didn't have anyone. I tried to be someone for him. Lena clutched the letter, tears in her eyes. Victor reached for her hand. She let him hold it for a second. But then, her phone rang. Blocked ID. A voice said, your cart's not the target anymore. Check your son's school. Click. Lena's heart stopped. Her son, her only child, his poetry books, his quiet smile. Victor saw her face go pale. What is it? They're going after my boy. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the cart. Not the scandal. Not even redemption. Because Lena had spent her life feeding people. And now she was ready to fight for what fed her soul. Her family. But the next move wouldn't come from her dad. It would come from the boy himself. And what he was about to do would make history. While chaos swirled around Lena's name, her 17-year-old son, Mateo Alvarez, sat quietly in the back row of his English class, staring at the text messages on his cracked phone screen. Her mom's a thief, lol, egg lady lies for likes. Better rice got roaches. The bullying had started the minute he walked into school. By second period, someone had printed a meme of his mother and taped it to his locker. By third, the principal had called him in not to offer help, but to recommend staying home for the week. Mateo didn't flinch. He just opened his backpack and pulled out a stack of poetry books. That night, while Lena tried to track down the threat caller, Matteo snuck out. He didn't go to a friend's house. He didn't go to the police. He went to the cart. Not to cook, not to cry, to speak. He climbed on top, opened a notebook, and began to read. My mother cooks with silence, with oil, memory, and things you can't taste with your mouth, only with your soul. Passersby slowed, turned. He kept reading. She didn't just make food. She made shelter. For me, for strangers, for a man who once spat on her soul and came back starving. By the end of the poem, the crowd was holding their breath. A teen girl shouted, "Read it again." Another, "Put him on camera." Someone live streamed it. By midnight, the video had hit 2.1 million views. Camila saw it first. She called Lena immediately. "Are you watching this?" Lina's voice cracked. "That's my boy." Camila smiled. "That's your legacy." Back in his hideout, Jonas wasn't smiling. Matteo's poem had flipped the script. He slammed his laptop shut and dialed a number. Time to burn it all. Cart. Permit. Anything she touches. But this time, someone else was listening. His own assistant. The one who used to eat Lina's rice every Tuesday after therapy. He clicked record. The next morning, Lena received an anonymous package at her door. Inside, a flash drive. She plugged it in. Jonas's voice played. Clear and vicious. "I made Victor look guilty. I paid the inspector to shut her down. This whole city thinks I care about food. I care about control." Victor heard it too. He looked at Lena. "You have what you need now." But Lena didn't answer. She turned off the speaker, packed the drive, and stood. "Let's go." "Where?" "To the mayor's office. At City Hall." The press had already gathered. Lena didn't flinch. She stepped up to the podium, holding nothing but a flash drive and her son's poetry book. Behind her, Victor, Camila, dozens of street vendors holding signs. "Food is culture, justice for Lena. We feed this city." Lena leaned into the mic. "For weeks, I was called a fraud, a liar, a symbol of everything wrong with our economy." She held up the book. "This is my truth. And this," she raised the flash drive, "is theirs." Gasps, flashbulbs. Reporters surged forward. Within hours, the city launched an investigation. Jonas Clem's empire began to crumble, his assets frozen, his name blacklisted. And Lena? Her permit was reinstated. Her cart reopened. But one person still hadn't spoken. Victor. That night, he walked alone to the cart. No cameras. No speeches. Just a small envelope in his hand. He handed it to Lena. Inside, a notarized contract, a transfer of ownership of Radcliffe Foods to a cooperative fund led by street vendors. Lena stared at the paper. "You're giving it all up." He nodded. "I built an empire on control. I want to build something on trust." She didn't speak, just handed him a plate. Fried egg, jasmine rice, chili crisp. No words exchanged, just hunger and history. But as they ate, someone watched from across the street. Not Jonas, not Camila. A new player. Someone with even more money, even more reach, and a reason to hate them both. And what she was about to do would turn their redemption into a global war. She stepped out of a sleek Silvertown car wearing all white heels that didn't dare touch a crack in the pavement, eyes shielded by designer sunglasses, and lips pressed in a line of precision. Her name was Li Weizhong, a silent investor from Shanghai who had once funded Jonas Klem's first 5 startups before he betrayed her. And now, she wanted control back, not just of the narrative, but of the entire food movement. Li Wei watched Lena from across the street serving rice, laughing with customers, handing out plates with her son by her side. To perfect, to clean, to powerful. She turned to her aide and said, "I want the cart, the name, the story, everything. Buy it, or break it." Back at Lina's apartment, Camila and Victor sat at the kitchen table reviewing their new proposal. It wasn't just about food anymore. They were launching Feed NYC, a vendor-run, publicly backed culinary co-op, with Lena as its founding chair and Matteo as its creative voice. Funding was rolling in, supporters across 5 boroughs, even talks of a documentary. But just as Lena opened her laptop to confirm the nonprofit registration, her screen froze, glitched, then turned black. A message appeared. "Control is an illusion. You were never the author of this story." Signed, LWZ. Victor's phone buzzed immediately. An unknown wire transfer alert. $5 million injected into their smallest vendor franchise. The sender? A shell company owned by Li Weizhong. "She's trying to buy us from within," Victor said, standing. Camila cursed. "She's not just attacking the movement. She's co-opting it." Lena stood silently, breathing slowly. "This was never about money," she said. "It was about voice, story." Plate to plate, Matteo, standing near the window, added, "Then let's tell it ourselves." The next morning, Lena made her boldest move yet. She closed the cart, just for a day. Instead, she opened the doors of a historic Harlem theater. Inside, folding tables, rice cookers, crates of eggs, and a mic. They called it the People's Plate. And every vendor who'd ever been silenced, pushed out, mocked or fined stood up and told their story. From undocumented chefs in Queens to grandmothers who sold tamales in Bushwick before gentrification took their corners, to kids like Matteo, whose art was now food. And when Lena stepped up to the mic, she didn't give a speech. She just cooked. On stage, 1 egg, 1 pan, 1 rice bowl, silent, focused, fierce. And when she handed the finished plate to a little girl in the front row, the crowd wept. Li Wei was watching. She turned to her aide. "She doesn't want money. She wants meaning." The aide replied, "What do we do?" Li Wei smiled coldly. "We erase her, quietly, globally." And that's when her plan began. Bribing food delivery apps to bury any vendor associated with Lina's name. Launching a competing food brand with identical colors, slogans, and packaging. Registering the People's Plate trademark in 43 countries before Lena did. Victor's legal team was overwhelmed. Camilla's network was crashing. But Lena, she kept cooking. Because the fight was no longer online. It was in kitchens, in mouths, in memories. And one by one, the city began to choose. Not based on marketing, but based on flavor. Until the day came when Li Wei herself approached the cart. No entourage, no cameras, just a white envelope. She slid it across the counter. Lena opened it. Inside, a check for $10 million and a handwritten note. "This meal changed the world. Now let me own it." Lena looked up slowly. Matteo stepped forward and said what the entire city was waiting to hear. The story's not for sale, but what happened next would test that promise in a way no one could have imagined. Because Lena was about to lose something more important than her cart. She was about to lose her voice. It started with a cough. Lena brushed it off, just the chilly crisp. She thought, too much smoke, too many late nights. But by the next morning, her voice was gone, no whisper, no rasp, nothing, just air. The doctors called it functional aphonia, rare, trauma-triggered condition. Her vocal cords were fine, but her body had shut them down. Stress, pressure, the weight of becoming a symbol. The woman who'd fed thousands with her words, her laughter, her rhythm behind the cart, now couldn't say a single syllable. Victor paced the hallway outside her hospital room. This can't be happening, he muttered. Camila checked her tablet. We've got press events lined up, vendor panels, international deals. Lena was supposed to speak at the UN's Food Equity Summit next week. Matteo stepped between them. Then we cancel it all. Victor snapped. That would be a mistake. Momentum matters. Matteo stared him down. She's not your momentum. She's my mother. Inside, Lena sat on the hospital bed, journal in hand, scribbling furiously. The words she couldn't speak, she poured onto the page. One message stood out, underlined twice. The plate speaks. The next day, with her voice still missing, Lena returned to the cart. She didn't speak, she cooked. And when people approached, she handed them small slips of paper instead of menus. On each, a story. Of struggle, of flavor, of family, of resistance. And they wept, and they ate, and they understood. Her silence had become a language. But Li Wei wasn't done. She launched Feast Forward, a corporate-driven global campaign that mimicked Lena's journey down to the color of the aprons. Billboards across cities said, "A bite of change, from cart to cause. Join the revolution. Order now." Except, it was fake, no soul, no story, just profit. And when someone looked closer, they found it. The recipe for Lena's rice and egg. Copied, trademarked, packaged for frozen meals. Victor slammed his fist on the boardroom table. They stole it. Camila gritted her teeth. And we let them. Matteo walked in with his backpack, holding a memory card. I didn't. They all turned. What's that? Victor asked. Matteo connected the card to the screen. Dozens of videos, raw footage. Lena cooking, talking, laughing, teaching. Before the silence, I recorded everything. For a school project. Never posted it. Just kept it. Camilla's eyes widened. We cut this into a short 10 minutes. No branding. Just Lena. Just truth. 3 days later, the video dropped. No ads. No logos. Just the title. The voice. Of the plate. The internet broke. Shared by Oprah. Retweeted by street vendors from Manila to Morocco. Subtitled in 19 languages within 24 hours. In one scene, Lena says, I don't want to be famous. I want people to feel seen when they eat. Another, egg and rice are poor ingredients until you taste them cooked with memory. Li Wei saw the video from her penthouse in Singapore. For the first time, she flinched. The stock in Feast Forward dropped 14%. Franchise vendors rebelled. Customers returned their prepackaged people's plates. And Lena, still silent, but standing taller than ever, the city awarded her the Heart of New York Civic Medal. She held it up, not alone, but beside Matteo. Back at the cart, a young girl approached. She handed Lena a handwritten note. My mom lost her voice too, but she never lost her flavor. Thank you for reminding me. Lena smiled, tears forming. She couldn't say thank you. But she didn't need to. She scooped egg onto rice and passed the plate. That night, Victor walked her home. He stopped at her door, looked down. I wanted to save your story, but it ended up saving me. Lena wrote one word on her notepad. Listen. Then she closed the door. But just as Victor turned to leave, he got a text from a number he hadn't seen in years. She's not done. Neither am I, Jay. Jonas was back. And this time, he wasn't coming for the cart. He was coming for Mateo. Mateo Alvarez stood on stage at the United Nations Food Equity Summit in Geneva, not because he was invited, because he took the invitation meant for his mother, who still hadn't spoken a word since her voice vanished. But she stood in the wings, watching, hand on her chest, as her son did what she once feared she'd never live to see. Speak her truth. Our food was mocked. Mateo began. My mom was called dirty, poor, uneducated. But when the world tasted what she made, they tasted memory. They tasted resilience. He held up a plate. Plastic. Plain. Rice and egg. That's all it takes to remind someone they matter. The room exploded in applause. Cameras flashed. Commentators across the globe praised it as the speech of a generation. But not everyone was clapping. In the back row, wearing a visitor badge and sunglasses, Jonas Clem watched with folded arms. He leaned to the person beside him and whispered, "Now it's time." 3 hours later, as Mateo left the stage, security stopped him. "Sir, we need to speak with you." "About what?" "This." They showed him a video deepfake I generated. Mateo's face, Mateo's voice, saying he had ghostwritten Lina's story, faked her silence, orchestrated the entire campaign. The caption, "The People's Plate, a family of liars." The media bit hard by nightfall. Hashtag Mateo the Manipulator trended worldwide. Lena collapsed in the hallway when she saw it. Victor called in every liar he had. Camila scrambled the PR team. But it wasn't enough. By dawn, the mayor's office was reconsidering Lina's civic award. The People's Plate Co-op lost 3 major donors. And Feast Forward Lee Wei's brand was now offering truth-tested alternative stories of struggle for sale. But Jonas made one fatal mistake. He uploaded the deepfake through an old burner account, one that was still being monitored by Victor's internal audit team. And within 36 hours, they had the proof. Metadata. Source files. Payment trails. Victor slammed the evidence onto the mayor's desk. Clear them. Now, the mayor did. Lina's name was restored. Mateo's honor reinstated. And Jonas? He was arrested at the airport with a fake passport and phones filled with unreleased AI propaganda. But the damage was done not to Lina, to trust, to the fragile belief that truth could stand alone. So Lina did something unexpected. She gave the cart away to a rotating team of new immigrants and second-chance chefs. They called it the legacy cart. No one owned it. Everyone fed from it. Mateo returned to school. Victor retired from public life, funding a scholarship in Lina's name. Camila became the first street food ambassador to the UN. And Lina, she stayed quiet. Until one day, on a rainy morning in Brooklyn, a little girl pointed to her and asked, "Are you the rice and egg lady?" Lina smiled, kneeled down, opened her mouth, and finally, after 87 days of silence, said, "Yes, baby, I am." The girl clapped. Her mom wept. And in that moment, New York City exhaled. Because some voices don't need a microphone, just a plate, a story, and the will to be heard.